Hey guys, it's Lucky here, and today we're going to be talking about the Magicka Templar. The Magicka Templar is insanely powerful right now, thanks to a few recent patches where it got multiple buffs. The Magicka Templar is perhaps in the best spot that it's ever been in. It's great for PvP, it's great for PvE. I'm going to be showing you a build here that can do all content in the game. It's going to be able to do all solo content, all group content, all world bosses. It can grind champion levels. It will be able to do anything that you want to do in this game, and it's going to be able to do it really, really well. While I'm talking about the build, I'm going to be putting footage of me rounding up huge groups of mobs to show its AoE capabilities. I'll be going through veteran content showing how well it deletes veteran bosses. Anything that you want to do, it's going to be able to do it, and it's going to be able to do it easier than almost any other class. This build is not going to require trial gear. It's very easy to get and very easy to use gear, which further adds to how insanely easy this build is. You can run this build as 1 bar or 2 bar. It's up to you. Let's jump in. As always, there will be a link to the build in the description below in case you want to refer to the written guide, and then just listen to this build guide as you're actually playing the game, as there will be a lot of information for you to absorb. But by the time this build is over, you will have mastered the Magicka Templar. You'll know the ins and outs of this class, the way that the passives complement the skills, and the way this gear is going to impact your character. In other words, you'll know everything you need to know. So in this video, I'm going to cover race, Mundus, attributes, consumables, gear, skills, rotation, passives, champion points, and more. Let's jump into it. As for the race, the recommended choices right now are going to be the High Elf, the Dark Elf, the Khajiit, and the Breton. The Breton is going to be your go-to choice for better sustain, while the High Elf and the Dark Elf are going to be your go-to choices for damage right now. The Mundus you're going to use is Thief. Thief is going to increase your critical chance. As for your attributes, we're going to put all 64 points into Magicka. The reason we do this is because your character's damage is directly tied to the size of their resource pool. The more Magicka you have, the more damage every one of your spells does. It's in the formula for damage in this game, and so we're absolutely going to take advantage of that. As for the consumables, you're going to go ahead and use Essence of Magicka. Essence of Magicka is going to restore Magicka and increase your Magicka regeneration by 30%. These drop off of mobs in the game, and you can also pick them up at guild traders. They're very cheap and very easy to use, and you should absolutely be spamming these things anytime you're in combat. This is going to greatly improve your sustain. In other words, this is going to make it so you don't run out of magic all the time. Now, whenever you're doing difficult content, something like a veteran solo arena, or maybe trying to solo a world boss for the first time, or maybe doing veteran DLC content, anything that you feel like is going to be difficult, you want every ounce of power you can get. That's when you're going to switch over to Essence of Spell Power. This is going to grant Major Sorcery, increasing your spell damage by 20%, Major Prophecy, increasing your spell critical chance, and it's going to restore Magicka while giving you 30% increased mag regen. In other words, these things turn your character into an absolute beast. However, they are very, very expensive. So only use them when you need them, but absolutely use them when you need them. They make a huge difference. As for our food, we're going to go ahead and use Witchmother's Potent Brew. Witchmother's Potent Brew is going to give you a little bit of health, a little bit of Magicka, while also giving you some Magicka recovery. It's great for padding your health, increasing your mag pool, and increasing your sustain all in one. Another great thing about this food is you can use it starting at level 1. There's a lot of food in this game where you can't do that, so this is pretty convenient when making a new character. Now, that's not to say that it's any worse than the foods that you can only use after 160, because it's not. As for the gear, on the jewelry and weapons, we're going to be using Deadly. Deadly is a fantastic set for the Templar. It used to be a set only the Stamina Templars could wear, but with recent changes to the game and how gear works, well, now it's a great set for Magplars too. The great thing about Deadly is that it's an always on buff. You don't have to worry about having a perfect light attack ratio. You don't have to worry about proccing some condition or getting your Magicka low to get the buff. It's just always there. And it's a massive buff to this character. It's going to increase the damage of our sweeps, which is our spammable. It's also going to increase the damage of our execute. So this is the perfect set for the Templar. And now we get to use it on our Magplar. And it feels so good on this character. You can see it in the video that's playing. My character is absolutely deleting these bosses with absolutely no trouble whatsoever. And that's veteran content. We're going to pair with the Deadly a set called War Maiden. War Maiden is an overland set. It's really easy to get and really easy to use. Again, this is an always on buff. You don't have to worry about perfect light attack weaving. You don't have to go into a trial to get it. It's just always there. The Magplar is the king of simplicity without sacrificing an ounce of power. You're going to be so powerful with this build, and it's going to be so easy and so intuitive. I had an absolute blast putting this one together this time and then testing it out to make sure it was still running really well this patch, and it blew me away yet again. When you're running solo, you're going to use a Ring of Pale Order on one of your ring fingers, and you're going to run one piece Slime Craw for the extra crit chance. On the back bar, you're going to use the Maelstrom Staff. The Maelstrom Staff is going to increase your light attack damage. And it is worth noting that we are using Deadly Daggers for the increased crit chance. Since our spammable is melee anyway, sweeps, why not use Deadly Daggers as well to increase our crit chance and our damage output? As for the skills, you can run this as a 1-bar or 2-bar setup. If you want to use only the front bar, you can. Most of your damage is coming from the front bar. There's a little bit of sustain that's happening on the back bar. You're getting things like Channel Focus and Elemental Drain, which we'll touch on in a second. But if you spend all your time on the front bar and you kill everything with everything on the front bar, you will be more than fine to do so. And then once you're comfortable with these skills on the front bar, you can start working on dipping into the back bar skills when you're ready. 2-bar builds will always be more powerful than 1-bar builds, but the Magicka Templar does a better job than most of succeeding as a 1-bar build. The first ability on the front bar is Toppling Charge. This is our gap closer and a stun. It's going to get us up on the enemy and it's going to stun them, allowing us to unload on them. It's great for our mobility and it's great for our damage, since we are a melee character and we need to be next to things to kill them. The second ability on the front bar is Puncturing Sweep. Puncturing Sweep is perhaps one of the most amazing skills in the entire game. This ability does incredible damage, but while doing that incredible damage, it's also slowing the enemy's move speed by 40%, and 40% of the damage you do comes back as health. 40% of the damage you do is coming back as health. That is insane, and it's why this class is so incredibly easy to play while doing so much damage. Your heal is also your spammable. Amazing. The third ability is Radiant Glory. Radiant Glory burns the enemy with a ray of holy fire. This is our execute, which means when the enemy gets down to around 25%, you're going to start using this beam of fire. It's going to connect from your hand to the enemy, doing an insane amount of damage. It's also going to heal you for 20% of the damage inflicted. Once again, the skill you're using to kill the enemy is a skill that's keeping you alive. Amazing. It's a really satisfying ability to use, and it does a ton of damage. The fourth ability on the front bar is Harness Magicka. This is a shield. This is the skill you use when you need to absorb damage, but you're not able to deal damage to the enemy to leech life back. You don't have a heal that you can spam without an enemy nearby. So instead you have a shield, which you can pop anytime. Maybe an archer's plinking away at you and you can't get to him yet. Just pop your shield one time. And the way Harness Magicka works is whenever your shield takes damage, you're going to get some of that Magicka back that you spent to cast it. The fifth ability on the front bar is going to be Inner Light. Inner Light is great for its passives. While slotted, your max Magicka is increased by 5%, and you get Major Prophecy, increasing your spell critical rating by 2600. So it's increasing our damage, it's increasing our max Magicka by 5%, and then there's passives in the Mages Guild that are causing it to further increase our damage and our sustain. So this one ability, you don't use it, it's just sitting there increasing the damage that you do on this bar, making for a simpler rotation that is just as effective. As for our front bar ultimate, we're going to be using Empowering Sweep. This is the ultimate built into the class. This is going to be doing nice AoE damage for a very cheap cost. It only costs 71 ultimate, so feel free to use this whenever it's ready. It's also going to grant you Empower, which increases the damage of all of your light and heavy attacks by 40%. So it's going to increase those light attacks that you're doing to the enemy by 40%, which is massive. It's also going to do great damage when you activate the ability. As for our back bar abilities, we've got Unstable Wall of Fire. With this is going to be proccing our weapon enchantment on the back bar. It's also going to be activating our Maelstrom Staff on the back bar. This does great AoE damage over a very large area. It's just a really nice, really powerful AoE dot, basically, for mag tunes. That's really hard to pass up. It's been incredibly powerful. It's been the meta for a long time, and it's still in the meta now. The second ability on the back bar is Blazing Spear. This is a great ability for group play, for solo play. It does fantastic damage in a very large area, and if an ally grabs it, they get a ton of resources back. So your allies will love you for it. You'll love the skill because it's doing so much damage for you. It's just a great ability all around. The third ability on the back bar is Consuming Trap. Consuming Trap is an amazing single target dot. It does a lot of damage to one target, and if that target dies while this dot is on them, you're going to get 4,000 health back, 5,600 Magicka, and 2,300 stamina back, right? And these are all unbuffed numbers. All the numbers on all these skills, these are all unbuffed. In actual combat, all of them are going to be a lot bigger, right? right? So this is a great skill. Anytime you find yourself struggling with sustain, try to pop this skill onto the enemy that's gonna die before the dot runs off, right? If it's getting low on health, throw this on it, boom, your sustain should fix itself immediately. The fourth ability on the back bar is Elemental Drain. Elemental Drain is a free to cast ability, which means there's no cost associated with it, so feel free to use it anytime your sustain is rough. Anytime you're running out of magic up, throw this on the enemy, because what it's going to do is, one, it's going to put Major Breach on the enemy, reducing their resistances by 6,000. So this amplifies your damage a lot. So it's very important anytime you're fighting a boss or a big enemy, you throw Elemental Drain. You don't need to throw it on small mobs or trash mobs, right? Because those fights are so fast and short that it's completely unnecessary. Plus, it only goes on one enemy at a time. So throw it on the boss. Anytime you're fighting a boss, that's going to increase your damage a lot while you're fighting that boss. It's also going to put minor Magicka steal on that boss, which means every second you're going to get 168 Magicka coming back in, as long as you're damaging that enemy, which you will be. So it's really, really good for your sustain, really good for your damage, and it's a great ability to have while soloing. The fifth ability on the back bar is Channeled Focus. Channeled Focus is going to be amazing for your survivability and for your sustain. With this rune on the ground, you're going to get Major Resolve, increasing your resistances by 6,000, meaning you take way less damage if something hits you while this rune is on the floor. It's also going to be giving you 242 Magicka recovery every 1 second. Standing within the rune heals you for 1,000 health every second. So if you can manage it, stand in it for a little bit of extra health regen, but this little health regen is pretty much nothing compared to the health that's going to be coming in from your sweeps, which is your spammable, that 40% health coming back in, from your Ring of Pale Order, bringing another 20% back in. So this 1,000, I wouldn't sweat it too much. You're mostly using it for the Major Resolve that you're getting, which is going to make it so you're way tankier, and the Magicka recovery that you're getting, which is going to make it so you don't run out of Magicka. This should always be down when you're fighting a boss. And then for our back bar ultimate, we're going to be using Fiery Rage. Fiery Rage is just a fantastic burst down AoE ultimate. If you need to hit a lot of things and you need to hit them hard, you really can't beat Fiery Rage. It's very, very expensive though, at 237 ultimate. So a lot of times you won't have the ult necessary to cast it, but if you do have the ult necessary to cast it, it's going to do an insane amount of damage for you. So save this one up for those boss fights that are really tough, or maybe the bosses that have a lot of ads, and drop this on them. You'll melt the ads and you'll really hurt that boss. As for the rotation on this build, you're going to be throwing down these back bar abilities, starting with your buffs, right? These will not aggro enemies, so you start with these. You're going to get your Channeled Focus and your Elemental Drain off. Then you're going to go into your back bar dots, Unstable Wall of Fire and Blazing Spear. Your enemy will now be aggroed and angry at you, right? It's going to be attacking you. Throw that Consuming Trap on it, then switch to the front bar and use your Spammable. This is the Spammable you're going to use until the enemy hits around 25%, at which point you're going to start using Radiant Glory. On your way to getting that enemy to 25%, these back bar items might fall off. If they do, just go ahead and switch back and reapply them. Anytime all of these are ticking, go ahead and keep spamming away that Puncturing Sweeps, or if they're below 25%, your Radiant Glory. Anytime you need to close the gap on the enemy, you're going to use Toppling Charge. And that's all there is to the rotation. It's very straightforward. Keep the back bar stuff ticking, and when they're all going, you're going to be using that Puncturing Sweeps. As for your passives, we're going to be grabbing Piercing Spear. This is going to increase your critical damage by 10% and increase your damage done to blocking targets by 10%, which is going to give you minor protection for 6 seconds, reducing damage taken by 5%. Anytime you activate one of these abilities, which, because of Puncturing Sweeps being your spammable, you'll always be activating that minor protection. We're also going to be grabbing Burning Light, which says every time you use a Adric Spear ability 4 times in rapid succession, you'll deal extra damage to that enemy, 5,000, 6,000 damage or so. This is going to be a huge source of passive damage that you're going to get just because you're using Puncturing Sweeps as your spammable. And next, we're going to be grabbing Balanced Warrior, which is going to increase our weapon and spell damage by 6% and our spell resistance by 1320. It's just a nice buff that's always on. It's there. It's great. It's easy. Next, we have the Dawn's Wrath line. We're going to grab Prism, because this is going to give us ult back anytime we're using a Dawn's Wrath ability. And we're going to grab Illuminate, because casting a Dawn's Wrath ability will grant minor sorcery to you and your group for 20 seconds, increasing your spell damage by 10%. And finally, we're going to grab Restoring Spirit, which is going to reduce the health, magicka, stamina, and ultimate costs of our abilities by 5%. It's just good for our sustain. And from the Restoring Light line, we're going to grab Sacred Ground. This is going to make it so that when you stand in your Channel Focus rune for 4 seconds after leaving, you get increased heals. And it's also going to increase the amount of damage you can block by 10% for that duration. Also, we're going to grab Master Ritualist, which increases your resurrection speed by 20% if you're playing with someone else. They will also revive with 100% more health. In the Dual Wield line, you're going to be grabbing Dual Wield Expert and Ruffian and Twin Blades. This is going to increase your spell damage. It's going to give you increased damage against stunned, immobilized, disoriented, or silenced enemies, which means when you use your toppling charge to close the gap on an enemy, you're also going to be doing 16% more damage to them thanks to Ruffian. And finally, Twin Blade, which because we're using dual daggers is going to greatly increase our critical chance on the character. On the back bar, we're using a Destruction Staff, so we're going to grab all of the Destruction Staff passives. We are wearing mostly light armor, so we're going to grab all of the light armor passives, but we are wearing a couple of medium armor pieces, so we're going to grab Dexterity, which is going to increase our critical damage, and we're going to grab Agility because it's going to increase our spell damage. So crit damage and spell damage increase. It's great for our character. If you have Fighter's Guild or Mage's Guild abilities slotted, then make sure to grab the Fighter's Guild or Mage's Guild passives. We have a Mage's Guild ability on this build, so make sure to grab those Mage's Guild passives. In the Undaunted, make sure to grab both passives. These are going to increase your sustain and your resource pool sizes. So you'll have more health, magicka, and stamina, and then you'll also get the resources back anytime you grab a synergy. Under Assault, you're going to grab a Continuous Attack. This is going to increase your move speed by 30% all the time, anytime that you're on a mount. So you get on a mount, you're moving 30% faster because of this passive. You only have to put 1 point in it. Putting a second point in it does nothing for you. Next, we're going to grab all of our racial passives. This character is a Breton for increased sustain, but it doesn't matter what race you are, the racial passives are always useful, or at least worth getting because they're there, and they're usually fairly substantial, even if your race isn't perfect for the role you're playing. And finally, last but not least, we're going to grab Medicinal Use level 3. Go ahead and grab this. It's going to make it so that your potions last as long as the cooldown. As for the champion points, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to the written guide down in the description below so that you can read them off there. I think that's going to be a lot easier to follow than if I'm rattling them off to you here. So be sure to click on the written guide down below for the champion point loadout. All right, guys, and that is it. Please, if you found this video helpful, be sure to like and to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And feel free to leave a comment down below with any questions. I try to answer all of them, or just to help me with social engagement here on YouTube for that sweet algorithm. If you ever want to hang out with someone else who loves this game, be sure to swing by my stream over at twitch.tv/luckyghost. That link will be in the description as well. I hope you have a fantastic day, night, or evening, wherever you might be, and I'll see you in the next video.